Hello and welcome to the night shift. I'm your host, Mike Rowave. John's cooking show is back with a new recipe, burritos.
But I think mine's pretty big and it's like pretty powerful as well.
Oh my god!
Welcome back to another episode of John's Cooking.
John's Cooking Show.
So I know some of you here like to meal prep for the week ahead. So do I have just a recipe for you? Today we're making meal prep burritos. So the first thing we'll do, we'll start off with the vegetables. So I have some bell peppers, onions and garlic with me right now. So to cut the bell peppers, I'm going to cut off the top first, followed by the bottom. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one part over here, and now I'll just trace the skin to remove the core of the bell pepper. Now we have a perfectly cored bell pepper, and I'll cut them into little matchsticks. So we just cut them into thin strips like these, over here, okay. Now we'll just do that again to the other bell pepper. So again, just cut off the ends. Next, we prepare the aromatics. So for that, I have onions and garlic. But you could use any aromatics you like, such as green onions or shallots. Start by removing the skin of the onion. So I normally cut off the top. Then I'll use my knife to flick off the outermost layer of skin. Now once that's done, I'll cut the onion down the center, cut off the edge of the root, and then I'll turn it 90 degrees and I'll cut along this edge here. Same thing, cut off the edge of the root, turn it 90 degrees, and just cut. And lastly for the garlic. Okay, now that we have our vegetables prepped, we're teaching how to prepare the chicken. So the first step, we're going to remove the skin, and here's a cost saving tip, okay? So what you can do is that if you take out the skin, where most of the fat is at, right? You can actually render out the oil from the chicken, and you can use it instead of using your kitchen oil. So that saves some costs for those that want to save money. So first you start by taking out the skin. So there should usually be one edge that's much easier to take out. Then from there, you should have like this pocket and you just start peeling it off. Okay, you eventually reach one corner where it'll be significantly harder to pull and tug out. So that's where like you can start by going in with a knife too. Start cutting it off. And then from there we can just dunk it into our coal pan or wok or whatever. So you can see there's also like a bit of excess fat that was attached to the skin. You can also use your knife to cut that off. We will use that to cook our chicken later. So from there we just cut them into small cubes. That allows us to have much shorter cooking time. Okay, now that you have finished cubing your chicken, you can start rendering out the oil. So you want to put it at a low heat, I would say about 3. So in order to prevent the skin from burning, we're just going to add a small splash of water, and now we slowly wait for the chicken fat to render.
A few minutes later.
Okay, now that we have rendered out the fat, there's plenty of fat in here to cook the chicken. So now we remove the skin. Okay, now we will lower all of the chicken in. Make sure to spread all of the chicken out a little. You could also do it in batches if your wok is really small. Okay, we will now cook all of this chicken. All you want is just a bit of color on it. It should turn from pink to white. Then you want a bit of color to it, like a bit brownish. Then that's when you know that the chicken is finished. So now while we're letting the chicken cook, I'll prepare the cilantro for the cilantro rice. Just grab a few handfuls of cilantro. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut off the roots. And we just want the leafy part. Go through it with my knife, make really thin cuts. So as you can see, the chicken's almost done. Most of it is already white. Some of it is getting a bit of a brown color to it. So Yes, it's hot. Okay, what we're going to do is that we're going to add some seasonings. So these are totally completely optional and feel free to use whatever you have in your pantry. I have some smoked paprika with me and I have some marjoram leaves. Okay, we're going to just stir that in a bit to give it some flavor. Okay, add a little salt. So now that the chicken's done, we'll just transfer it over to another plate. And then we can begin with the vegetables. Start off by adding a little touch of oil. Just a little bit will do. Because what happens is that the vegetables are going to release a lot of moisture. The objective is to boil it all off. So we'll first start off with the aromatics. So the onions and the garlics go in first. So we're going to fry all of the onion and garlic until it becomes a little, the onions become a little translucent and the garlic starts to change color. And you want to wait until it's a little soft before you start adding in your bell peppers. So this is where the bell peppers start to release a bit of its moisture, okay? So once you start to see a small pool of water form, you're going to increase the temperature to really boil off that water. So the key rule about meal prepping food is that you really don't want it to be too wet, okay? Because when you have too much moisture, okay, water starts to pool and puddle together. And so that when you reheat the food, it tastes very soggy. So you want to boil off as much of that water as possible. Another way to speed up the process and to really draw that moisture out is to add some salt, okay? Don't worry about adding too much salt because most of the salt will be absorbed by the liquid. And also, we're not really seasoning the rice as much or the burrito, so having it a bit salty, a bit more flavorful is not really an issue. Now I want you guys to stir it constantly, to stir fry it constantly. You want to make sure that none of the garlic really sticks to the bottom of your pan. Or if you have a non-stick, you just don't want any of the garlic to burn. Okay, now that most of it has been fried, okay, we don't want to cook it for too long because we still want the bell peppers to give a bit of crunch. Okay, but once you see that the onions are really soft and wilted, and that the garlic is mostly fried and charred, and you can really smell like all the different ingredients blending in together, that's when you know when to stop. Okay, so I'll just off the heat and I'll transfer it to the plate. So I try to get as large of a plate as you can because you really want all the steam, right, to just like evaporate. You don't want to trap the steam, you don't want the steam to re-enter, or you want to let it cool down as fast as you can. If it's still hot and steaming, as you wrap the burritos and stuff, what happens is that the skin of the burritos will get really soggy and then they'll fall apart really easily when you reheat them back up. So now that is our second component. So now we move on to the third component of our meal prep burritos, which is the cilantro rice. It involves only three components: cilantro, butter, and rice. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a slab of butter and all my cilantro inside. If you want, if you feel like if you have it on hand, you can also add some zest of lemon, okay, or like lime if you do. Add citrus fruits for special flavor. The original is pretty simple for today, so I'm just gonna add cilantro, butter, and rice and mix it together. Now that every grain of rice is like buttered up and lubricated, you can start with the assembly. Do it again.
Who said lubricated? No.
Okay, now that each grain of rice is slathered with butter, okay, we can start the assembly process. I've got some wraps here with me. So I'll first start off with a spoonful of our cilantro rice, followed up with some of our chicken, and lastly some of our vegetables. And I'll top it off with a bit of cheese. Okay, so to wrap the burrito, first we'll fold it up once, then we'll fold in and tuck in the sides. Okay? Then we'll lift it up a little, let gravity do its work, and then we'll fold it back out. And there we have our nicely done burrito. Thank you for joining me on another episode of John's Cooking. Hope to see you in the hostel kitchen.
Next time on The Night Shift, we speak to SUTD's highest undergrads.